A cripple, huh? Let's see who's really powerless now.
The voice message wasn't meant for me to hear. Mason Decker froze at the kitchen doorway, watching his wife Danny laugh into her phone while their 7-year-old son Eli colored at the breakfast table. Her voice carried that familiar, cruel edge she reserved for talking about him behind his back. I swear, Travis, he just limps around the house like some wounded animal. The guys at your gym call him the limping pet now. It's honestly embarrassing. She twisted her wedding ring, a habit that used to mean nervousness but now felt like mockery. I can't keep pretending this is a real marriage. Mason's right leg throbbed where the shrapnel had torn through muscle and bone 3 years ago during that pills bust gone wrong. The same injury that ended his career as a detective and left him dependent on his wife's sudden fitness influencer income. The same injury Danny now used as ammunition. Daddy? Eli looked up from his coloring book. Are you okay? Mason forced a smile, ruffling his son's hair. Just tired, buddy. Keep coloring. But inside, something had shifted. The fog of PTSD medication and suburban complacency lifted like morning mist. For the first time in months, Detective Mason Decker was fully awake. That evening, Danny served dinner with the fake smile she'd perfected for her Instagram posts. Her fitness brand sponsorships had transformed their modest home into a showcase of granite countertops and ring lights, but the warmth had leaked out somewhere between the professional photos and calculated captions. Mason, we need to talk after Eli goes to bed. She didn't look up from her phone, where comments flooded in under her latest workout video. 300,000 followers hung on her every word about authentic living and finding your truth. The irony wasn't lost on him. After bedtime stories and tucking Eli in, Mason found Danny in their bedroom, already changed into the silk pajamas she wore for casual evening content. The ring light cast harsh shadows across her face. I think we should try a trial separation. The words came out rehearsed, like she'd practiced them in the mirror. You know, give each other space to figure things out. Mason sat on the edge of the bed they'd shared for 8 years. What kind of space? I've been thinking about taking Eli to stay with my sister in Charlotte for a few weeks. You could have the house, figure out your next steps. Her fingers drummed against her phone case. I already talked to his school about temporary arrangements. The casual mention of school arrangements hit like a punch. She'd been planning this for weeks, maybe months, moving pieces while he struggled with nightmares and physical therapy. What about us? He asked quietly. Danny finally looked at him, and her expression held nothing. There is no us anymore, Mason. There hasn't been for a long time. That night, Mason couldn't sleep. He limped downstairs to his home office, a converted closet where he kept mementos from his police days. In the back of a filing cabinet behind medical bills and disability paperwork, his fingers found what he was looking for: his old surveillance equipment. The GPS tracker was small, magnetic, police grade. He'd kept it when the department cleaned out his desk, a souvenir of better days. Mason turned the device over in his hands, muscle memory flooding back. At 3 a.m., he slipped outside and crawled under Danny's Range Rover. The tracker clicked into place behind the rear axle, invisible and silent. If she was planning something, he'd know about it. The next morning brought revelations. While Danny showered, her phone buzzed with text messages. Mason glanced at the screen and saw Travis Colt's name, the gym owner she'd been collaborating with for months, featuring him in workout videos and promoting his supplements. Can't wait to have you all to myself soon. The lawyer said we just need to establish abandonment. Almost there, baby. He has no idea what's coming. I've got everything ready for you and the kid. New life starts now. Mason's hands shook as he screenshotted the messages. His wife wasn't just leaving him. She was planning to erase him completely. Over the following days, Mason watched his world unravel with the methodical precision of a detective gathering evidence. The GPS tracker revealed Danny's true schedule: gym sessions that lasted hours longer than she claimed, meetings with lawyers during her errands, apartment viewings in Charlotte while supposedly visiting her sister. But it was the pattern of her movements that revealed the bigger picture. Every Tuesday and Thursday, she spent 3 hours at GritFit Gym, not working out. The tracker showed her car parked there, while the gym was officially closed for deep cleaning. Mason drove by one Thursday evening and saw lights in the back office. Through a gap in the blinds, he watched his wife kiss Travis Colt with an intimacy that made his chest tighten. This wasn't just an affair, it was a complete replacement. He took photos with a telephoto lens from his car, legally parked on a public street. Old habits died hard. That weekend, while Danny hosted an Instagram Live workout from their backyard, Mason made a decision that would change everything. He drove to the law office of Patricia Hawkes, the sharpest divorce attorney in Asheville. Hawkes was everything Danny wasn't: direct, honest, ruthless when necessary. She reviewed Mason's evidence with the cold efficiency of a surgeon. "Your wife's been busy," Hawkes said, spreading printouts across her desk. "GPS logs, text messages legally obtained from a shared device, photographic evidence of infidelity." But here's what's interesting. She pointed to a bank statement Mason had found. "She's been moving money to accounts in her name only. Preparing for divorce while pretending to work on the marriage. Can we stop her from taking Eli? Not stop, but we can level the playing field. North Carolina is a fault state." "Adultery affects custody and asset division." Hawkes leaned back in her leather chair. "Your wife thinks she's playing chess, but she's been moving pieces on a board you can see. What do you need from me? Keep documenting, stay clean. And whatever you do, don't confront them directly yet. Let them think they're winning." The hardest part was pretending nothing had changed. Mason smiled at breakfast, kissed Danny goodbye when she left for the gym, played blocks with Eli in the evening. But inside, he was building a case that would destroy the careful fiction his wife had constructed. The GPS tracker became his window into their secret world. Tuesday meetings weren't just about love and planning. Travis was coaching Danny through divorce strategy, feeding her lines about Mason's mental instability and inability to provide. It was a Wednesday afternoon when everything exploded. Mason was picking up Eli from school when his son mentioned something that made him freeze inside. "Mommy's friend Travis said I might get to live in a different house soon, with a big backyard and a pool." Eli kicked his feet against the car seat. "He said Daddy might not be able to visit very much because of his hurt leg." They weren't just planning to take his son. They were already preparing Eli for abandonment. That evening, Mason made his first active move. While Danny was in the bathroom, he accessed her laptop and found the family court paperwork she'd been drafting. Temporary custody orders, restraining order requests citing his PTSD as a safety concern, financial statements claiming he contributed nothing to household income. She planned to serve him Friday morning and have him removed from the house before he could respond. Mason had 2 days to flip the script. He spent Thursday gathering the final pieces of evidence he needed: bank records showing joint account funds diverted to Danny's personal accounts, text messages between Danny and Travis discussing how to handle the custody situation, photos of Travis's truck parked at their house during school hours when she claimed to be alone. But the smoking tool came from an unexpected source. Mason had installed a small security camera in the garage after their lawnmower went missing the previous month. When he reviewed the footage, he found something explosive: Danny and Travis searching through his personal belongings, looking for something. "It's gotta be here," Travis's voice was clear on the audio. If he's got any evidence, he'd keep it close. "Maybe we should just plant something," Danny suggested, rifling through boxes of his police memorabilia. "Some pills, or make it look like he's drinking again." "No, that's too risky. We stick to the plan. Get him out, then we can control the narrative." Mason watched his wife of 8 years calmly discuss framing him for misconduct. The woman he'd built a life with was not just leaving. She was trying to destroy him. Friday morning came with artificial normalcy. Danny made her usual protein smoothie, kissed Eli goodbye, and headed to the gym for her morning session. Mason waited exactly 30 minutes before making his own move. He drove to Grit Fit Gym, not to confront, but to document. The parking lot was empty except for Danny's Range Rover and Travis's pickup truck. Through the front windows, he could see them in the main workout area, not exercising but sitting close together planning. Mason parked across the street and used his telephoto lens to capture their intimacy. But it was what happened next that provided the perfect evidence for court. Travis's business partner, Jake, arrived for what appeared to be a scheduled meeting. Mason couldn't hear the conversation, but he could read body language. Jake was angry, pointing at Danny then at Travis. The argument escalated until Jake stormed out. Curious, Mason followed Jake to a coffee shop 3 blocks away. "Excuse me," Mason approached Jake's table. "I think we might have something to talk about." Jake looked up with recognition. "You're Danny's husband, the cop. Former cop, and soon to be former husband, if my wife gets her way." Mason sat down uninvited. "That looked like an interesting conversation you just had." Jake's laugh was bitter. "Travis is destroying my business for that woman. We're supposed to be partners, but he's been using gym funds to impress her. Fancy dinners, apartment deposits. Even talking about buying her a car. He shook his head. I started GritFit to help people, not to fund someone's midlife crisis. How much money are we talking about? 15,000 so far, maybe more. I've been trying to figure out exactly how much, but Travis handles the books. Jake leaned forward. Look, I don't know what kind of person your wife is at home, but she's poison for my business. Every decision Travis makes now is about impressing her. Mason saw an opportunity. What if I told you there might be a way to protect your investment? That afternoon, Mason met with Patricia Hawks to deliver the final evidence package. GPS logs, photographs, audio recordings from his own property, financial documentation, and now witness testimony about Travis's embezzlement. This is overwhelming, Hawks said, reviewing the materials. But we need to be careful about how we present it. Too much evidence at once can look vindictive. We want you to appear reasonable, not obsessive. What's our next move? We beat them to the courthouse. File first, establish our narrative before they can serve their papers. Hawks pulled out her phone. I'm calling in a favor with Judge Morrison. We're going to request an emergency custody hearing based on your wife's plan to relocate the child without proper notice. Will it work? Mason, your wife is about to discover that 8 years of marriage to a detective means you know how to build a case. She's been playing checkers while you've been playing chess. The custody hearing was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Mason spent the weekend preparing, reviewing testimony, and most importantly, having honest conversations with Eli about what was happening. Daddy, are you and Mommy getting divorced? Eli's question came while they were building a fort out of couch cushions, a normal Saturday activity that felt loaded with meaning. It's complicated, buddy. Sometimes grown-ups can't live together anymore, but that doesn't change how much we love you. Will I still live here? Mason looked around their living room, filled with Eli's art projects and family photos from better times. I don't know yet, but no matter what happens, you'll always have a home with me. That evening, Danny returned from another training session with Travis, glowing with post-workout endorphins and secret satisfaction. She moved through their house like she was already mentally gone, packing small items, organizing documents. Mason, I've been thinking about our conversation last week. Maybe the trial separation should start sooner rather than later. She sat on the couch where he and Eli had built their fort hours earlier. I could take Eli to my sister's this weekend, give you time to figure things out. No. The simple word stopped her mid-sentence. Mason had never refused her anything during their marriage, always deferring to her stronger personality and, lately, her financial leverage. Excuse me? I said no. Eli stays here. This is his home, his school district, his life. If you want to leave, that's your choice. But our son isn't going anywhere. Danny's composed facade cracked slightly. Mason, be reasonable. You can't take care of him alone. Your condition, your limitations. My PTSD doesn't make me an unfit father, Danny. And my leg injury doesn't prevent me from loving my son or keeping him safe. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. And it's exactly what you've been telling Travis and your lawyer. Mason stood up, his full height imposing despite the slight limp. Did you really think I wouldn't figure it out? For the first time in months, Danny looked genuinely surprised. I don't know what you're talking about. GPS tracking, text messages, secret apartment viewings in Charlotte, your boyfriend's embezzlement from his own business to fund your new life together. Mason watched her face pale. I know everything, Danny. The question is what you're going to do about it. Danny's shock transformed into cold anger. You've been spying on me? That's illegal, Mason. Stalking, invasion of privacy, everything I collected was legally obtained. GPS tracking a vehicle I co-own, photographing activities in public spaces, documenting financial irregularities in joint accounts. Mason's voice carried the authority of his former profession. I may not be a cop anymore, but I remember how to investigate. You're sick. This proves you're not stable enough to have custody. Actually, it proves I'm exactly stable enough. Patient, methodical, thorough. Everything a good father should be. Danny stood up, her hands shaking. Travis was right about you. You're obsessive, controlling. This isn't over, Mason. No, it's not. But it's going to end very differently than you planned. That night, Danny made a critical mistake. Instead of retreating and regrouping, she escalated. At 2 a.m., Mason's security camera captured her and Travis attempting to break into the garage, looking for his evidence files. The motion sensor lights triggered, and Mason appeared in the doorway with his phone recording. Looking for something? Travis stepped forward, his steroid-enhanced frame intimidating in the darkness. Back off, cripple. This is between me and your wife. Actually, this is breaking and entering, on camera. With audio, Mason held up his phone. Smile for the prosecutor, Travis. You think you're so smart, Travis snarled. Wait until everyone hears about your mental problems, PTSD, violent episodes, medication dependency. No judge is going to give custody to a psycho ex-cop. Mason kept recording. Tell me more about these violent episodes. When did they happen? Don't play games. Everyone knows you've been unstable since that incident. Probably still having flashbacks, reaching for tools that aren't there. Travis was warming to his theme, not realizing he was being baited. I've seen guys like you. One bad day and you snap, hurt someone innocent. Your kid deserves better. Anything else you'd like to add for the record? Danny grabbed Travis's arm. Stop talking. He's recording this. But Travis was too angry to stop. Your wife deserves a real man, not some broken-down has-been who can't even walk right. I'm going to give her everything you couldn't, starting with getting that kid away from your toxic influence. Mason stopped recording and smiled. Thank you. That was perfect. The emergency custody hearing was scheduled for Thursday morning. Mason arrived early with Patricia Hawks, carrying 3 binders of documentation and a tablet loaded with video evidence. Judge Morrison was a stern woman in her 60s who had no patience for emotional manipulation or legal theatrics. She reviewed the initial filings with professional efficiency. Mr. Decker, you're requesting emergency custody modification based on allegations of parental alienation and plans to relocate the minor child without proper notice. Mrs. Decker, you're counterfiling for sole custody based on mental health concerns. Let's start with evidence. Hawks presented their case methodically. GPS logs showing Danny's deceptive schedule. Text messages revealing the planned custody strategy. Financial records demonstrating her secret preparation for divorce. Photos documenting her affair, but it was the garage video that sealed the case. Travis's recorded threats about Mason's mental health, combined with the breaking and entering attempt, painted Danny and her boyfriend as manipulative and potentially dangerous. Your Honor, Hawks concluded, Mr. Decker has demonstrated remarkable restraint and responsibility throughout this process. While his wife was planning to uproot their child's life for her own convenience, he focused on gathering evidence through legal means and protecting his son's stability. Danny's attorney tried to salvage the situation by focusing on Mason's PTSD, diagnosis, and disability status. But without the manufactured evidence they'd hoped to plant, their case fell apart under scrutiny. Mrs. Decker, Judge Morrison said finally, your behavior throughout this process shows a concerning pattern of deception and manipulation. Moving joint funds to personal accounts, planning relocation without proper notification, involving your minor child in inappropriate discussions about custody arrangements. Your Honor, I was just trying to protect my son from an unstable environment. An unstable environment you helped create through adultery and financial deception. The judge's tone was ice cold. Mr. Decker will retain primary custody. You'll have supervised visitation pending further evaluation. Court adjourned. Mason walked out of the courthouse feeling like he could breathe fully for the first time in months. But the victory was just the beginning. Over the following weeks, the consequences of Danny's choices cascaded through every aspect of her carefully constructed life. Her major sponsorship deal with a fitness supplement company ended when Mason's attorney provided them with text messages showing Danny's private mockery of playing mommy for money and her plans to abandon her family. The lifestyle brand that featured her in their Authentic Motherhood campaign dropped her after learning about the custody battle and infidelity. 300,000 Instagram followers meant nothing when the person behind the account was revealed as fundamentally dishonest. But Travis faced even worse consequences. Jake's decision to cooperate with Mason's investigation revealed $15,000 in embezzled gym funds. The partnership dissolved, and Travis found himself facing both civil and criminal charges. The final confrontation came at Asheville's annual charity gala, a high society event where Danny had hoped to rebuild her reputation. She'd begged the organizers to let her speak about overcoming personal challenges, positioning herself as a victim of circumstance, rather than the architect of her own destruction. Mason arrived fashionably late, wearing his best suit and walking with only the slightest limp. The confidence of legal victory had improved his physical therapy results dramatically. Amazing what healing could happen when stress and betrayal were removed from daily life. Danny was on stage when she spotted him in the crowd. Her carefully rehearsed speech about finding strength in difficult times faltered as she realized he held a folder in his hands. "As I was saying," Danny continued, "sometimes the people closest to us don't support our growth and success." "Excuse me." Mason stood up, his voice carrying clearly through the ballroom. "I think there's been some confusion about tonight's speaker." The crowd turned toward him, murmuring recognition. Local news had covered the custody battle and Travis's embezzlement charges. Mason's reputation as a decorated police officer who'd been wronged by his unfaithful wife had garnered significant public sympathy. "Mason, please don't make a scene," Danny said from the podium, her composure cracking. "I'm not making a scene." "I'm correcting the record." Mason limped slowly toward the stage, the folder clearly visible in his hands. "Ladies and gentlemen, I have here documented evidence that tonight's speaker committed adultery, misused family funds, attempted to fraudulently obtain custody of my son, and conspired to plant false evidence of wrongdoing." The ballroom erupted in shocked whispers. Several attendees began recording with their phones. "Furthermore," Mason continued, "the man she was having an affair with has been charged with embezzling $15,000 from his business partners to fund their relationship. This is the person your charity has chosen to represent values of integrity and community service." The event organizer rushed to the microphone. "Mrs. Decker, I think it would be best if you stepped down from the podium." Danny's face flushed red with humiliation and rage. "This is maltreatment. He's stalking me, trying to destroy my reputation out of spite." "Your reputation destroyed itself," Mason said calmly. "I'm just making sure everyone has the facts." Security escorted Danny from the building while she screamed about injustice and legal retaliation. The crowd watched in stunned silence as 8 years of marriage ended not with tears, but with public disgrace. Mason donated the speaking fee to a PTSD support group for veterans and first responders. 6 months later, Mason stood in his backyard watching Eli play on the swing set they'd built together the previous weekend. The boys' laughter carried across the neighborhood, pure and joyful in a way that had been missing during the dark months of his parents' failing marriage. Danny had moved to Charlotte permanently, taking a job at a small gym while she rebuilt her finances and reputation. Her social media presence had dwindled to a few hundred followers, mostly family members and people who hadn't heard about her scandals. Supervised visitation happened every other weekend, tense but civil. Travis served 6 months in county jail for embezzlement and was now working construction. His gym empire reduced to memories and legal bills. The steroids and ego that had made him feel invincible proved useless against systematic legal consequences. Mason's phone buzzed with a text from Patricia Hawkes. The final divorce decree had been signed. The house was entirely his, along with primary custody and the majority of their joint assets. Justice had been served with mathematical precision. "Dad, push me higher," Eli called from the swing, his face bright with uncomplicated happiness. Mason walked over and gave his son a gentle push, watching him soar against the backdrop of the Blue Ridge Mountains. His leg barely twitched anymore. Stress and betrayal had contributed more to his pain than the original injury. With peace restored to his life, healing had accelerated remarkably. That evening, after Eli was asleep, Mason sat on his front porch with a beer and the satisfaction of a case finally closed. His phone showed 17 missed calls from Danny, probably another attempt to renegotiate visitation or ask for financial help. He'd call Hawks in the morning to handle it. A car pulled into his driveway. Jake stepped out, carrying a bottle of bourbon and wearing a grin. "Thought you might want to celebrate," Jake said, settling into the porch chair beside Mason. "Travis got evicted today. Couldn't make rent without the gym money." "I heard. How's the new business going?" "Better than ever. Turns out people respect a gym owner who actually has integrity." Jake poured bourbon into 2 glasses Mason had brought from the kitchen. "I owe you a debt I can't repay." "You saved my business and probably my sanity." "You did the right thing when it mattered. That's worth more than money." They sat in comfortable silence, watching fireflies blink across the lawn. Mason felt something he hadn't experienced in years, complete peace. No hidden agendas, no secret betrayals, no carefully managed facades, just truth finally exposed to sunlight. His phone rang one more time. Danny's name appeared on the screen, but Mason let it go to voicemail. Whatever crisis she was facing now was no longer his problem to solve. He'd spent 8 years trying to prop up a woman who saw his love as weakness and his trust as stupidity. Never again. The next morning brought unexpected news. Mason's former police captain called with a job offer. The department was starting a new domestic violence investigation unit and needed someone with his particular combination of skills and experience. I know you've been through heck, Decker, but you've proven you can handle complex situations with patience and precision. We need investigators who understand how these cases work from both sides. Mason accepted immediately. The work would be challenging but meaningful, helping other people navigate the same kind of systematic betrayal he'd survived. His disability rating would allow him to work part-time while still maintaining full benefits, perfect for single parenting. Eli was thrilled that his dad would be a detective again. Will you catch bad guys like Mommy and Travis? Something like that, buddy. But mostly, I'll help good people who got hurt by bad people. Like us? Exactly like us. On Mason's first day back at work, he found a card on his desk from the entire domestic violence unit. Inside was a simple message. Welcome back, Detective. We're proud to have you on the team. The card was signed by 24 officers, but the note at the bottom came from Captain Wilson. Sometimes, the best investigators are the ones who've survived their own cases. Mason smiled and put the card in his desk drawer next to a photo of Eli on his first day of second grade. Life had a way of bringing things full circle. 6 months later, Danny made one final attempt to disrupt the stability Mason had built. She filed a motion claiming his new job created schedule conflicts that affected her visitation rights, hoping to regain some leverage in their custody arrangement. The motion was denied within 24 hours. Judge Morrison noted in her ruling that Mason had demonstrated exceptional stability and growth since their divorce, while Danny continued to show a pattern of prioritizing her own convenience over her child's welfare. That evening, Mason received a phone call that changed everything. Detective Decker, this is Agent Sarah Mills with the FBI. We understand you recently investigated financial fraud involving a fitness business owner named Travis Colt. Yes, ma'am. Is there something new? Mr. Colt's embezzlement was part of a larger scheme involving supplement companies and influencer fraud. We'd like to discuss your investigation methods. Your documentation was some of the most thorough we've seen in a civilian case. Mason met with Agent Mills the following week. Travis's small-time embezzlement had led investigators to a network of fitness influencers and supplement companies engaged in systematic fraud, fake endorsements, and money laundering. Danny's text messages and social media activity had provided crucial evidence linking multiple suspects. Would you be interested in consulting on similar cases? Mills asked. We need investigators who understand both social media manipulation and traditional evidence gathering. The consulting work paid 3 times what Mason made as a part-time detective. Within a year, he was financially secure enough to consider early retirement from the police force and focus entirely on federal consulting work. But the money was secondary to the satisfaction of seeing justice served on a larger scale. The investigation ultimately resulted in 47 indictments across 6 states, with Travis serving as a key witness in exchange for a reduced sentence. Danny was never charged with any crimes, but her association with the case effectively ended any hope of rebuilding her career in fitness or social media. She eventually took a job as a hotel desk clerk in Charlotte, a quiet life far removed from the spotlight she'd once craved. Mason's final encounter with his ex-wife happened at Eli's school graduation ceremony. She sat alone in the back row while he occupied a front seat with Hawks, Jake, and several other friends who'd become his chosen family. After the ceremony, Danny approached him in the parking lot. Mason, I want you to know I'm proud of how well you've done. Eli talks about your work all the time. He's a good kid. Credit for that goes to both of us. Danny looked older, worn down by years of financial struggle and social isolation. The polished influencer persona had been replaced by someone who seemed almost fragile. I made mistakes, she said quietly. Terrible mistakes. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know I understand what I lost. Mason studied her face, looking for signs of manipulation or hidden agenda. He found only exhaustion and genuine regret. The mistakes weren't the problem, Danny. It was the systematic deception and cruelty that came with them. He paused, choosing his words carefully. But you're Eli's mother. Whatever happened between us, he deserves to have a relationship with both his parents. Thank you. That means more than you know. They parted ways without anger or bitterness. Just two people who'd once loved each other and failed spectacularly at building a life together. That evening, Mason and Eli celebrated the graduation with pizza and ice cream, a tradition they'd started after the divorce. Simple pleasures had become precious during the dark months when Mason wasn't sure he'd be able to keep his son. "Dad, are you happy?" Eli asked, chocolate ice cream on his chin. "Very happy, buddy. Are you?" "Yeah, I like our life now. It's not as complicated as before." Mason laughed at his son's wisdom. Not complicated at all. Later that night, Mason sat in his home office reviewing files for his latest FBI consultation. A fitness influencer in California was suspected of running a similar scheme to the one that had brought down Travis and his network. The work was challenging and meaningful, but Mason found his thoughts drifting to simpler things. Eli's upcoming baseball season, the vacation they were planning to the Grand Canyon, the small daily moments that made up a good life. His phone showed a missed call from Danny, but this time it wasn't a crisis or manipulation attempt. The voicemail was simple. "Thank you for being such a good father. Eli is lucky to have you." Mason deleted the message and closed his laptop. Tomorrow would bring new cases, new challenges, new opportunities to help people rebuild their lives after betrayal. But tonight was for peace, for gratitude, and for the quiet satisfaction of a man who'd been tested by fire and emerged stronger. He walked through his house, checking locks and turning off lights. In Eli's room, he adjusted the covers and kissed his son's forehead. The boy stirred slightly, mumbling something about baseball practice and best friends. Mason stood in the doorway for a moment, watching his child sleep peacefully in a home built on truth instead of lies. This was what victory looked like. Not dramatic confrontations or public humiliation, but simple domestic tranquility earned through patience and principle. His phone buzzed one final time. A text from Agent Mills about a case in Denver that needed his expertise. Mason smiled and set the phone aside. Business could wait until morning. He stepped onto his front porch and breathed in the mountain air. Somewhere across town, his ex-wife was probably struggling with insomnia and regret. Somewhere else, Travis was adjusting to life as a convicted felon with limited prospects. Mason felt no satisfaction in their suffering. Justice wasn't about revenge. It was about consequences flowing naturally from choices. He'd simply ensured that the consequences were proportionate and appropriate. A car drove past on the quiet street, its headlights briefly illuminating the "For Sale" sign in the Kowalski's front yard. Good neighbors? Moving closer to grandchildren in Florida? Mason made a mental note to ask about their asking price. The house would make a good investment property, maybe rental income for Eli's college fund. Planning for the future felt natural now, instead of the burden it had been during his marriage to Danny. Hope was possible when life wasn't built on deception and manipulation. Mason went inside, locked the door, and headed to bed. Tomorrow was Sunday, which meant pancakes with Eli, followed by baseball practice and grocery shopping. Normal family activities that had once felt mundane, but now carried the weight of victory. He'd run down the people who tried to destroy his family and emerged victorious not through violence or cruelty, but through patience, precision, and an unwavering commitment to truth. In the darkness of his bedroom, Mason smiled and closed his eyes. The nightmares had finally stopped. The dreams that came now were about building, not surviving.